go a little faster on the transitions. I think we should be able to just make it up that way. We still have to finish our step 4. We can't go longer, unfortunately. So it is what it is. If you're not happy, you're very welcome to seek out the project leads from the previous session and let them know, because I certainly did. You're all good to go? Yeah, so those of you that have 20 minutes on the schedule, you have officially been cut to 15 to help us make it up. But, like I said, I'm going to try to give the 20-minute people more time, and we'll cut the transition time. So we'll just try to do it that way. Unfortunately, we got handed a little bit of an issue to deal with. Maybe I'll kick it off a minute early or so, since it's just me talking. It's fine. I guess I'll just... Are you able to start the recording? Okay, so I'll start 2 minutes early, that's all, because we're late. So welcome, everyone. I want to thank you all for being here. I am happy that we could have this session. This is a very strategic initiative for the Open Compute Project. In fact, you might have heard that we did an important announcement yesterday around ODSA, the Open Domain Specific Architecture, and we announced the next version of our specification for a physical interconnect for chiplets, and also, for the first time, a new link layer for the interconnect, which actually is very strategic for us because we ultimately plan to generalize that link layer so that it could be laid over different PHYs. And so the work of that group can be leveraged however the market plays out. And to that, I want to talk a little bit about open chiplet economy. Why economy, not ecosystem? It's very important for us because we're looking past the technical ecosystem to a complete economy. And to that end, we've reestablished our work group around the business of the chiplet ecosystem to create a true economy. And also, we've started to have some discussions about our vision, which is to have chiplet vendors be able to supply their material or their chiplets in an open marketplace that get consumed by system and package builders. And to that end, I'm hoping that sometime later this year, the OCP marketplace will become open for business for a new dimension, and that would be for chiplets, for vendors to post their chiplets and for system and package builders to come and see the wares and potentially create new product. And so it is our hope and intent that we become that front door to the chiplet marketplace going forward. So that's why when you hear others say ecosystem, that's fine, and that's why we say economy. And that's, for us, a very important distinction as to what we're trying to achieve. And I'm sorry that Bobby couldn't be here today. Unfortunately, he had other commitments, but he's graciously allowed me to take the stand and walk us through some of the vision and strategy for the ODSA. And so I think we've all seen this. I have this chart here for some of the new people in the audience that may not have heard this before, that there's really been a shift in the marketplace. I think it started with the rise of the Google Brain project, which is kind of leaping forward 25 years from the original birth of AI, and created the need for a very diverse silicon ecosystem. And that was one of the important drivers for chiplets. That, in also addition to the fact that we need new strategies for pushing silicon forward, for improving die yields, or having smaller dies, many more of them with inside the chip. And you know what? It's a natural progression, because if you think back to the early days of computational infrastructure, we used to have co-processors that were external chips. They got sucked into the die, and now we're just continuing that process of bringing more and more capability and more diversity inside the die. Now, one of the things that people have said or talked about is that maybe there could be one universal standard for chiplet interconnect and one universal way to do chiplets. We already know that's very unlikely. First of all, there are many different use cases, many different market segments, many different requirements for the different market segments. And by that alone, based upon my experience, I can tell you that I'm very confident there are going to be multiple physical interconnect standards that will be required for different use cases. And that's fine. Within the Open Compute project, we do not discriminate. We want to be a catalyst for the market. We don't work to drive a market. The market will decide for itself. And in my long career, I'm pretty confident no even a big company ultimately doesn't drive the market. They may try, but the market will drive itself. So we look forward to a marketplace or a market where there are many, many different interconnect technologies for chiplets satisfying different needs. We also look forward to the fact that we think we're going to have optical chiplets. And once you come to that conclusion, then open domain specific architecture and OCP is a natural place for the community to come together and to work on standardizations that help drive the market forward. And we're already seeing it very happily. The standardizations happening in our community are driving the ability to entry for small players that perhaps couldn't enter before, so removing barriers for innovation. We have a free flow of custom innovations coming along. We also have a very large set of different applications that are now driving the market forward. One of the things that we also recognize is that we need a new type of supply chain. In the past, when chiplets are used in one company with one internal process, many things could be decided later once the system and package is assembled. Unfortunately, when we're dealing with a marketplace where chiplets may be brought in from different vendors, we need to look at a supply chain in a different way, where many of the things that are decided later when it comes to the substrate and the packaging actually needs to be understood up front when the chiplet's designed. So that's why you see those arrows that sort of go back in the process, and we look at a redesign process going forward. So we recognize that. And here's the vision that I talked about, the open chiplet economy, where we have the open marketplace, hopefully one day at the OCP marketplace. Chiplet vendors can supply to the marketplace. System and package builders will potentially design one chiplet that's their IP, pick up others, create a system and package, and deliver it to the end users. Now, in order to make that happen in a true open fashion with not a lot of friction, we need the support ecosystem, IP providers that can provide potentially various chiplets. The EDA tools need to be able to support this type of open design environment between companies, the ability to create test platforms. And so at the bottom, you can see all the things that the OCP community is now planning to work on, has been working on, the standardizations. If we roll back to just January, wow, it seems like such a long time ago, we had a also very important announcement around a language or schema developed in XML for describing chiplets as a part electronically, the bump map, the size, the thermal characteristics, the 3D changes in dimension, how that part can be implemented and positioned with other chiplets. And having a standard language to do that is really important, because now chiplet vendors of different companies have one language they can use to describe their part. It can be taken into EDA tools, and we now have the potential to even automate design. That's a very important standardization that the OCP community came together to do, and then JEDEC has picked that up and is now making that a worldwide standard. Likewise, we have the business workflows group that I mentioned that's now getting off the ground, and some of the things we're hoping to look at are business cases. We've heard from people in our community, gee, we tried to make the business case for chiplets. We couldn't do it. It didn't seem to work. But then there are things that they potentially didn't consider, like what about the reuse across product lines for chiplets? So now what we're looking to do is bring people together, some that have successfully created the business case, some that maybe are trying to figure out how to, and create these pro forma business cases that could be leveraged, is one thing that we're discussing. The other thing we're talking about is, can we create some sort of standardized checklist so that when a chiplet vendor puts their part for sale, that the consumer can be satisfied that that part meets certain criteria that they can then go ahead and use, maybe even with third-party validations. So some of the things that you might look for from us going forward that the community has decided to work on, in addition to the next rev of bunch of wires coming to 2.0, where we doubled the speed and added many other very important features to make it very viable in the marketplace. Some of the things that we recognize, and I mentioned the business workflows and the fact that things that we're working on around the system and package integrations that are required, the things that we need for SIP designs. These are some of the hard problems that the community has come together to drive. And I'm going to go quickly because I have a short amount of time. One thing that I want to also share with you is that we're not working alone, that we partner with many other organizations, and it'll take a village to create a true chiplet economy. And we'll continue to add other alliance partners going forward. Some of the people have told me, well, gee, a chiplet economy, that's like 10 years out. Why do I care? And my answer is, it's not true. It's already happening. It's in the early stages, and we're fostering those embers. In fact, I've already had a couple of people approach us that are thinking of making their chiplets available, wondering how they can get to market with it. And so I know we're at the right time. And you see, we're more at the middle stages of getting it going than we are at the beginning in some cases. The other thing is the Open Domain Specific Architecture project at OCP. I talked a lot about the chiplet interconnect, but we have 6 different work streams that are currently active. Hope you will join us in some of them. And I mentioned the business workflows that we're working on. The chiplet schema description language is the one that we just announced in January with JEDEC. We have some very interesting work on a generalized open test bench where we can actually have a standardized set of tests for putting 2 chiplets together, seeing if they interconnect, seeing that they work together. We've had many other key achievements. I'm going to leave this for reference. And as I want to give a few more minutes to DJ, who's right after me. And one last thing that's really important. Hundreds of millions of dollars have already been invested by a number of companies, including the likes of Samsung and Fraunhofer and many others, in terms of using or building chiplets that interconnect using the bunch of wires standard. So it's something that has already had a huge impact in the marketplace. And with that, I think I'm going to stop and turn it over to you, DJ. Give you back a few minutes. Please join us, if you can, on our calls. I think if you know the OCP, you know where to find the calendar. Okay.